Shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Ivy, you're going to give us the big intro.
Yeah. Hey guys, how is everyone? We came up positive with COVID in my house this week on the 3-year COVID anniversary. So I'm doing this from home. But just wanted to say hi. Thank you so much for supporting our virtual tasting. It means so much to us. We're so excited to share these wines with you. We tasted through everything last week, and Emily's curated an amazing cheese pairing. If you haven't met Emily yet, she's our tasting room manager. Our friends at Master of the World were kind enough to put these kits together for us. So check out their offerings. They have some amazing sommelier-led wine courses. And we're just really excited to have you guys. Molly Lomborg, our winemaker, Bob and Maggie Tillman, our co-owners, are going to lead you guys through the tasting. Erica and I will be in the chat. If you have any questions, please throw them in there. We love to chat with you. And as always, we're available via email and texting as we open the custom window for you guys tonight, for everyone else tomorrow. So feel free to reach out. Any questions you have at all, we are always happy to help. So enjoy the tasting. I hope you have some Grenache Blanc in your glass. And I'll turn it over to Maggie, Bob, and Molly.
Ivy, thank you. And we're delighted to see all of you. Many of you have joined us for these before, and many of you are brand new members and brand new to the virtual tastings. So we're excited about it. Cheers. So what we're going to do is taste through all the wines in the order that they came in the kits. So again, if you don't have Grenache Blanc, get some in your glass. And we are going to chat about the wines, just story, all that good stuff. And do throw questions in the chat. Erica and Ivy are on it. And it's, we want you guys to have a good time, and let's do it.
So we should mention the cheese. We have a cheese pairing here.
We do. Ivy mentioned it briefly, but it's truly.
Well, what's the specifics of this particular one?
So I'm hoping you all saw, I know that Ivy and Erica shared that info. Again, our tasting room, Emily, is secretly a professional cheese person, genuinely. I know, can you see? Look at how
I'm not sure if I can beautifully portray this to everyone, but it is amazing.
Like, trust us, it's beautiful. So the pairing with this guy is a buffalo mozzarella with a coconut macaroon, which I have no idea how a macaroon is made. So again, we're very thankful for Emily for a lot of reasons. And on those pairings, she also threw down options that were like Trader Joe's versions and then a higher end version. So even if you're not doing them tonight, keep that and do it sometime because they're delicious. So let's talk Grenache Blanc.
Well, before we do that, let's talk 20th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we've been at this for 20 years, if you can believe that. It's kind of shocking, actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. My hair's turned gray.
Not all of it.
Mostly just happened in the last 6 months. I'm not sure what happened. But anyhow, yeah, we... this great adventure started in 2003, and with any luck, we're going to have a picture up here that shows what our vineyard looked like in 2003. I see Ivy
Hopefully
working.
It's coming. My technological skills are being challenged. Give me 2 seconds.
So that's all right. I'll cover for you while you're working on it. But in 2003, in the fall of 2003, after virtually 9 months of searching, we discovered the 2 mountains that are now covered with grapevines and are a thing of incredible beauty. And we purchased those 2 mountains, which commenced a 20-year-long process. So we spent the next 2 years prepping to put a vine in the ground, which turned out to be a substantial job. We had to build a road up the mountain. We had to get power up the mountain. We had to drill a well and get water up the mountain. We had to convince the local utility company to run a wire. Anyhow, I could go on, it took a while. In 2005, we planted 41,000 plus vines.
Give or take.
And started nurturing them along. And our first harvest was 2007. By the way, we just opened a 2007 wine. It was called Syrah. In those days, we didn't have the name Toasted Slope, but it was the 2007 Toasted Slope. Our cellar master, Andrew, moved on, got promoted to be assistant winemaker in another winery. And so we reached back and pulled out one of the original wines. And to my delight and a little bit of surprise, I have to admit, it was delicious, actually.
Yeah, it was one of those where it's always interesting but it's not always delicious. And this was both.
Yeah. So there we go. There's the trailer pond. There's the wines we're going to drink. And here's the picture I was talking about.
There we go.
So there you can
Aw.
see Lynn and I posed in the back, just behind Lynn's shoulder there. You can see the big oak tree where we now have a deck. If you look across the way on the toasted slope around that big oak tree, you can see those little black or sort of dark green clumps. Those are poison oak clumps.
That's horrifying.
It turns out that there's certain spots on that slope that have deep soil profile. It's like a little hole right there. It's got, and the poison oak sought that out over the eons and prospered in those very spots. And in fact, to today, if you take this same scene, probably about, I don't know, late October, when the vines are starting to turn, you'll see those are the last ones to turn. They stay green the longest of anything. So at any rate, that's really all I wanted to say. 20 years and we're still rolling strong.
Yeah. So thanks to all of you for making it happen, really. We can make the wine, but someone needs to drink it.
Yeah,
so we appreciate
sure.
you all.
So on to the Grenache Blanc, Molly. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I love Grenache Blanc. I joined the team in 2020. So just had my 3-year Altaversary last week. Just decided to start right before March 2nd, 2020. So right before the world shut down.
Yeah.
Great timing. But for me, Grenache Blanc is something that I have always loved, and it's kind of a lesser known varietal, but it totally has taken my heart. So over my years of winemaking, I've spent a lot of time experimenting with this grape, from tank fermenting, fermenting in new barrels, fermenting in old barrels, fermenting in stainless steel barrels, lees inclusion, no lees inclusion. And I think I've kind of created the path that I really like. Generally speaking, this wine is all fermented in neutral oak. So it goes into small, regular sized barrels. So, and we ferment in them. They're very old, so we're not looking for any oak characteristics coming through. But what we like with that is that it's kind of, the oak creates a micro oxygenation to the wine. And then it also is a small vessel. So all the lees, which is the sediment that falls out of the wine after fermentation, gets to be around a lot of the wine, and it helps kind of makes the palate a little richer and broader. Our 2022 Grenache Blanc is a funny one for me. So this harvest was very interesting for all of us. It started much earlier than we thought.
Like way.
Yeah, like we
Like
bottled
weeks
on
early.
July 21st, and we ended up harvesting Grenache Blanc for our sparkling. We are, for those of you who don't know, we have 3 vintages of a Méthode Champenoise, so traditional style sparkling wine is currently on tirage, aging. But so we harvested for our sparkling wine on August 4th.
Which is 2 weeks earlier than 2021.
2.5.
2.5. I mean, it was really early, and all of us had plans and thought we had a little time, and nope, that was not true.
Yeah, it was wild. We just caught us all off guard. But the fruit was ready. And then I waited about 10 days before I harvested for our regular Grenache Blanc. And it was funny, the numbers, sampling, everything, numbers were there. The fruit looked beautiful. We harvested the fruit. We brought it in and the sugar was much lower than we had expected. So our sampling numbers lied. Out there in the vineyard, there just must have been some berries that weren't as ripe. And so at first this wine was really kind of lean and clean, and I couldn't figure out what to do with this wine. I really liked it. The acid was really zingy. And through a little bit of trial and error and blending, I decided to actually blend a half a barrel of Viognier and Roussanne into this. So you will see the percentage. Normally we make 100% Grenache Blanc. But we also, so we ended up blending a little bit in, and we're honest. So you see everything on the label. But I think it's really beautiful. It still has this really soft, velvety texture. It's light on the palate, but it maintains all the characteristics that I love with Grenache Blanc. So we have the white flowers, we get the kind of honeydew melon, we get a little bit of pear notes, and just a great minerality going all the way through.
I love this wine so much, and Dad, could you talk a little bit about basically what we have learned from Molly when it comes to making Grenache Blanc? Your style on this wine was different.
Yeah.
Always.
I always made it in stainless steel, and it was a nice clean wine, but it lacked the incredible aromas that neutral oak brought. It was a shock to me. I had no idea it could make such a difference. And it only lives in the oak like 3 or 4 months. It's not a real long time. But if you stick your nose in that thing, it's crazy. For me, it's like a fruit cocktail. You can smell all manner of things. Can't quite put my finger on any of them, but there's just a little myriad stuff going on. It's great.
Well, it's funny because one of my descriptors for this wine is actually that fruit cocktail syrup, that's like in the bottom, but it really does smell like that.
It was amazing. So Molly's first vintage, 2020, this is how I interpreted it. Do tell your side of things, but I feel like she was sort of making the case to Bob, right? Of like, also oak. Like, I know you've always done this in stainless steel, but I know what I'm doing, and maybe some barrels. So I don't know if you all remember, but in 2020, there were 2 Grenache Blancs, one of which was all stainless, one of which was all barrel. And the unanimous decision from Bob through the entire team, we all loved this neutral oak approach. So it's something Molly's continued, and that's the plan. And the result is gorgeous.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, Bob and I are both kind of science nerds, so I know the way to prove anything to him is that I literally have to prove it. Either research or proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
So
this was a slam dunk.
Yeah. And when Molly says that, she really means it. I think one of the reasons this sort of passing of the winemaking baton has gone so successfully is that Molly and Bob have a lot of shared nerd DNA in terms of their approach and how they come at wine and grape growing, and they're interested in really trying to understand what's going on and then respecting the art of it all. And good job.
So I'm thinking that, Ivy, can you pop up the next picture, please? I think there's another picture here I wanted to comment on.
Hopefully I can.
All right. You had it going a minute ago. So as I was citing our kind of history, 2007 was our first vintage. Back it up one, if you would. Yeah, so 2009 was a major historical note for Alta Colina, in that Maggie joined us, actually. So here's a picture of Maggie taken in 2012. I think the barn did not exist.
Yeah.
Where this picture was taken from, today stands the barn. It kind of gives you an idea of the way that things have developed over time. That's at the top of block 2, looking back across the canyon. The trailer pond is nestled down below the horizon of that first hillside you see there. So I think on to Viognier.
On to Viognier.
Do we have any Viognier in our glasses?
You have some right
Oh, I have the bottle. Aha.
Even better, right?
Like, we can make this happen.
So Viognier, I want to just give a quick comment on the name. It's called 12 O'Clock High. We come in for a lot of guesswork as to where this came from. One of the more popular ones is that it's an aviation reference, because there was I guess there was an actual TV series called 12, and there was a movie as well, I believe, both aviation oriented. And then of course we have the old 900 Syrah, which is clearly an aviation reference, but no, this has nothing to do with aviation. It has sort of 2 roots. Originally, it was named after the road direction of the vines, happened to be dead north-south. So 12 O'Clock High. And over time, we've come to realize that if you look at a map of our vineyard, which Ivy has popped up for you, at the 12 o'clock point at the very top of this picture is the Viognier. So that has over time become how the name got there, even though that's sort of secondary. Okay, over to the Viognier. What do we got here?
So 12 O'Clock High, if you all were to do a 10-year vertical of this wine, it's another one that has seen a lot of evolution. And one of the things that has been really exciting to see Molly work on is sort of the vineyard side. Viognier is hard. And I think people talk about like Pinot's hard and and there are some grapes that sort of have a reputation for being challenging. And I think that Viognier should be in that conversation, because so much of what we love about Viognier are these incredible aromatics, and it just comes at you. It's this sort of extroverted, it is not quiet Viognier. And we want that. That's one of the things we like about Viognier. And to get that, you need maturity on the vine. And one of the things that you have to balance is letting it hang on the vine long enough to get those beautiful aromatics, but not so long that there's no acidity left. So, just the way fruit works, like if you eat a plum a week too early, it's really tart. And if you eat a plum a week too late, it's like mushy and cloyingly sweet. So there's that sweet spot. Grapes are the exact same. And one of the ways Molly achieves that is we harvest this 3 different times. And that is a real gift of being an estate operation. Having our own vineyard is we can be as high maintenance as we want. And that's pretty high maintenance. If at the site, we're making about 200 cases, if we were purchasing these grapes from another grower and we said, oh, how many tons is that? Not very many.
No, 3 tons.
Yeah.
So 3 tons, if we said, okay, we're going to buy 3 tons of Viognier from you and we want to harvest it 3 different times, the answer would just be like, no, it's not a thing. So I'll let Molly talk about why, but the result is thrilling in my mind.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I've only been here for 3 years now. So I'm very young on this vineyard and learning our vineyard. But yeah, as Maggie said, Viognier is just interesting because it is so expressive. And as Maggie noted, the easiest way to get the expression out of Viognier is just to let it hang. So you can leave it on the vine till it's 27, 28 bricks, which is a measurement of sugar, meaning it is really, really ripe. The grapes start to lose their water. So they kind of start to dehydrate a bit. The skins really soften. And then you get just like a whole lot of the stone fruit, the esters and aromas that we're looking for. But the problem with that on the flip side, because sugar and acid are inversely related. So as our sugar goes up, our acid's going down. And then obviously if you have a lot of sugar, the yeast is going to consume it all, meaning you're going to have a lot of alcohol. So oftentimes you get these beautiful Viogniers, but they're like 16% alcohol, which is just ludicrous in my opinion for a white wine. So in learning the vineyard, I've been playing around with it a lot and trying to find alternate ways that we can get those same flavors, but also maintaining good natural acidity and keeping a lower alcohol. So 21 was the first year that I think in 20, we harvested it 2 ways. In 21, I think we actually harvested it 4 ways because we have 2 different sections of this block. One is cane pruned and one is spur pruned. But my thought process here was, what if we try an early pick where maybe if we just directly press those grapes, those aromas and flavors might not come out. So instead, what we did is actually jumped into the macro bins with the grapes and did pigeage or foot stomp.
I love Lucy.
Yep. Think of I Love Lucy. Exactly. Yeah. But it's actually like a really good workout. It's hard. At the beginning of harvest, everyone's like, yay, pigeage. And then by the end, they're like, oh my God, more grapes. We got to stop. Like, it's a really good workout. If anyone wants to come in September, October, we'll put you to work. But what I found is that I can leave the fruit on skins overnight. We protect it during that time with like a wild yeast strain and also some dry ice. And then what we do is we press it the following day. So we do lose a little bit of our acid in that process, but what we gain is so much beautiful aromas and flavors. So in trying to figure it all out, we do skin contact on the cane and the spur section. And then I do and that's an early pick. And then I do kind of a middle of the road pick. And then I leave a little section to hang a little bit longer as kind of our riper pick. And what started out as just straight up an experiment ended up putting everything together into the blend. So just because we make the wine doesn't mean we're forced to put it in the bottle. As Bob says, it's always about quality. So we always want to make sure if we taste something and it's not at the quality level of our wine, it doesn't matter if we're under our targeted case productions, we'll never put that in the bottle. But we got really lucky with the Viognier because weirdly, we were able to utilize all of these different picks and just craft this really beautiful wine. I'm really, really excited about this wine. I think it's one of the best Viogniers I've made. So and I don't say that lightly because I don't like to toot my own horn, but this is.
Ivy, pop up the picture of Molly telling me about the Viognier the first time.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what picture.
I don't know what
is.
picture either.
I'm so curious what it's going to be. Ivy's going to hunt it down.
Bob, I might need a little more help.
We're up on the
What were you
vineyard. We're
talking
up on the
about?
vineyard near the deck.
Oh, yes, you got it. You got it.
And,
Oh, that's funny.
we just tried this Viognier for the first time.
Mhm. There it's coming.
There
There we
we
go.
Not
That's
bad.
a Viognier reaction.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
not bad. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Pretty funny.
Ridiculous.
So on to we have a library wine we threw in this
We
time.
do.
It's kind of an experiment.
We do.
Pop up the next picture, Ivy.
Yeah, you got it. Let's see here.
So one of the things that we were most excited about working with Master the World on the tasting kits this year
There we go.
was being able to include a sixth wine for you all. And frankly, they have much better technology when it comes to rebottling these wines from the 750 mils into the 187 mils that you're all drinking from. And so something like a library wine, it's had a decade, and minimizing oxidation to get it in the little bottles. We were very excited about the opportunity to do that. And we do have 8 cases available. I think we have a 2-bottle limit on it because it's, there's just not much to
8
go
cases.
around, and we'd love for as many of you to enjoy it if you would like to include it or add it onto your shipment. So that's the housekeeping.
So yeah, this is
about
me
it.
working on the tasting notes for the 2012 GSM. At that time, the oak tree was still there. It's probably been there a couple hundred years or so, I think. But we had no deck, and so we had a pick and shovel, and we cleared a little, I don't know, 4 feet by 10 feet long flat spot. It's a pretty good slope, and we had a bench, a chair, and a little table. And so I had all the wines, all the 2012 wines up there, trying to write tasting notes. It was a very nice time. It was also, I think, the year that we transitioned 100% to organic farming, if I remember right.
It was. So 2012 was an important year in terms of kind of our farming history at Alta Colina. Like Molly was saying, there's no telling Bob a thing. We're gonna show Bob the thing. And one of our interests from day one was organic farming. And so we actually set aside 2 sections of the vineyard from day one that we farmed organically. And the idea was we will eventually bottle these as standalones, which some of you may remember in 2011, we actually did that. We bottled a Mourvèdre and a wine that was called Block 2 Bio. It's a very romantic name, of course. And those were us bottling those organic sections of the vineyard. And that was the proof. We're like, nope, this is delicious. And with, 8 or so years of farming under our belt, at that point, we knew organic was viable, both from a farming perspective and a financial perspective, and just, it's a lot of question marks. And so as of 2012, we've farmed the entire vineyard organically. And it's something we now feel really strongly about. And also I live on the vineyard, and I appreciate to not be poisoned. So that's helpful.
So it turns out that on our site, we're in such a benign climate that organic farming is possibly easier maybe than conventional farming with synthetic products and so forth. We have just not a tremendous amount of pressure from any sort of pests. We have powdery mildew that we have to worry about, but so does everybody in the world. So it's an easy thing to do. And it's just so much nicer, you don't have to have walkers with poison signs hanging on them, and you can go for a stroll in the vineyard and not worry about it. Just everything about it's good. And
Yeah. And we have, our vineyard team has been with us for years and years and years. And again, it's just, we want everyone to, let's not poison everyone. Again, it's just not that complicated.
plus the soils are healthy. We haven't killed the bugs. All the bacteria and fungi that are living down on the roots and helping these vines grow they're doing great. We give them compost, and we do compost teas 2 or 3 times a year. And you go out and you can grab the native cover crop pretty much anywhere on the vineyard. Just reach down, grab one and pull, and you can pull it out and you get all of the roots. It goes all the way down as far as those roots go, those little tiny filamentary roots. That soil is just so friable. There's a lot of happy creatures growing down there.
Absolutely. And as for the 2012 GSM, so when we planted Alta Colina Vineyard, we knew we were going to do a GSM. It's one of the reasons we purchased where we did and farm where we do. And in terms of the vintage, I'll have these guys talk about their experience on the winemaking end of 2012. 2011 was a very memorable year in terms of weather because it was cold. It was ask anyone in California about 2011 and it was a whole thing. And so in 2012, we all thought, oh, thank God, like it's normal. We're back to warm weather and all that stuff. What we didn't know at the time is that was also the beginning of the previous drought.
Mm.
That would not be top of mind until about 2014. But for you guys, 2012, how did it go?
2012, yeah, as Maggie said, 2011 was a rough one. It was a wet winter, but we had a very late frost that destroyed a lot of the vineyards and a lot of varietals just didn't ripen. So coming to 2012 was just a classic California vintage. So I felt like, obviously I wasn't at Alta Colina at the time, but I was making wine and it was just, everything was so much easier in 2012.
Mhm.
It was like, it's kind of comical looking back to 2011, even talking about the fact that we had certain varietals that didn't ripen, because here we are, 20 minutes ago telling you about starting harvest in August. So, getting things to ripen is never our problem. But 2012 it was a beautiful year in my opinion.
So I think and my belief on that is that 2011 was the coldest, shortest growing season in living memory. There's no one alive in California that can remember a colder year. There might have been one back there somewhere, but certainly back into the early 40s, nothing close. So even though we had little rain going into the 2012 year, I think the vines just didn't use up much water the previous year. They didn't get a lot done. So the first year of that drought, they were fine. They just delivered a great year for us, and they're pretty happy. We didn't start noticing drought issues for another year or two.
Yeah. And then we couldn't stop talking about it.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Yeah. And here we are. To date, we are at 29 plus inches at the ranch.
Yes.
Which for us is great. If we hit 20 on Alta Colina, we are thrilled and we feel like it was a correct kind of winter. Yeah, and this year we're at 28, which is wild.
I hope somebody's been reading my little
was just
notes
gonna
I'm
say.
sending out. I've been really tickled with that. We've had a couple of just goofy weather events. We had the great rainstorm, Molly's wild ride. She was trying to get her 3-year-old kid through this horrendous mess. It was the roof, or not the roof, but the walls of washing down onto the road and pavement collapsing. And then last Saturday morning, we woke to an inch of snow. Oh my God, can you believe that? Those of you back east, don't laugh, please. Give us a little.
I mean, like
cut us a
in
little slack here.
context,
Yeah.
in context, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all of you in Illinois and New Hampshire
Yeah.
and cold
Yeah.
places, it was crazy.
We all just went crazy taking pictures. Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely. So where are you all in the wines? Are we rushing you? Are you ready for the 2020 GSM? Or glasses empty? Perfect.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. I love it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
You guys drink like we do.
You
Oh,
do
we
your
got
post.
one thumbs down.
Going too
I know it
fast.
happens. You know what?
Take
We
your
have
time.
multiple glasses
We
here,
do.
so we're kind of cheating.
We do. Exactly.
I will say that. I like to kind of revisit the last. Yes, girl, she's got two also. I like your
love it.
style.
I love it.
I like your
So
style.
take your time on that library wine. And as we start moving into the 2020s, this is really an exciting vintage
Mhm.
for many reasons, one of which is head to toe Molly. So that growing season, Molly was on board. These are total Molly wines, which is very exciting.
Oh,
There she is.
There I am.
There she is.
That's me pumping over a tank. Not sure it was GSM, but you never know.
Mhm,
So many pump overs, we can't remember.
it's true. And just in terms of Molly coming on as winemaker, so Molly and I have been friends for a long time. We met through our mutual friend Riley. They went to college together. I've known Molly for a really, really long time. And we used to sort of joke and have these conversations like, oh, that would be so cool if, we could work together and make wine and da-da-da. And, you know, with Bob and I, it was a conversation for probably 5 years of, while I do make contributions to the business, winemaking is not among them. And so it was, you know, just sort of in the backs of our minds of, okay, at some point we need to find the right person to sort of bring into the mix and pass that baton to. And I did a little low-key matchmaking in terms of, they both attended this technical event a couple hours south in Santa Barbara, and I planted the seed that they should carpool, and it worked. And it worked.
It's true.
Yeah. And Dad, like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a big deal for you
Yeah.
to say someone else make the wine. How are you?
I'm happy with it, actually.
going?
Yeah, completely happy. The wine's got better, so that made it a lot easier, I can tell you that. And you guys are going to observe that. We're getting ready to move into these reds now, and they're great. They're really good.
They're great. Yes. So if you're ready for that 2020 GSM, get it in your glass. And just as a point of reference, the little bottles that you all have, those are the equivalent of a quarter bottle. So just if that's helpful as you're moving through, if you want to drink it all, go for it. And if you say maybe half and we'll finish tomorrow, whatever. But it's the equivalent of 1.5 bottles. in
No
that
judging.
kit. No, I've never. We
I-
would never.
I can read one comment that says no judging, and I love that.
Exactly. So getting in to the GSM, I can't remember the blend on this. Can you remember the
Oh
blend on
gosh, no. GSM's actually, it's a wine that I love to make because food-friendly wines have a place in my heart. But this wine is never dictated by blend for me. I'm gonna read it for you guys. So it looks like I know what I'm doing. 60% Grenache, 31% Mourvèdre, and 9% Syrah. And we made 350 cases of this wine. So this wine is my favorite wine to blend, but can also be the most difficult. So when you think about, I guess we were kind of talking about how many times I harvest the Viognier, but then when we look at GSM, we're talking about 3 different varietals. We have multiple blocks of every single one of those varietals, multiple clones, multiple aspects in the field. So this wine is just like, you start off with such a broad range of what can go into it. Although I would always like to see this wine be Grenache forward, just because we have Syrah dominant wines, we have Petite Sirah, we have Mourvèdre focus wines. So my only goal with this is to kind of preserve the quality of Grenache. Some years it's 60%, some years it's 80%. So it's really just the blend that dictates it. But this wine's really exciting for us. I think it does actually really well with a little bit of air too. So if you just poured this one, if you do have an extra glass, you can always leave it and come back to this one. But I was actually just writing some tasting notes for this the other day. And I got a lot of cherry cola. I get chai spices like cardamom and cinnamon stick. I get some strawberry fruit leather. And one of my favorite characteristics about a good GSM is that it kind of should remind you of potpourri. So where you get a little bit of again, like some cinnamon stick, but then you'll get some like dried rose petals. And then you get a little bit of like a dried fruit characteristics. It's just something to me that you should just want to keep smelling over and over again. And that's why Grenache has kind of taken my heart, is because it is, you know, a lighter varietal, but it's so complex in its aromas and flavors. And then we just get really lucky to kind of boost the Grenache with a little bit of Mourvèdre and Syrah.
This is going well.
So what's the cheese that goes with this?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
pretty darn
Oh, this
tasty, I know
one's
that.
cool.
We're failing Emily here.
This
Yeah.
is the mimolette.
This
correct?
is the mimolette.
Which is the orange one
A bright orange cheese. I
with a
don't know.
little wafer of something.
With
or
the
other.
coffee hazelnut crisp.
Mm.
We cannot do justice to Emily's. She prepared this like gorgeous platter for us.
Mm.
Anyway, she's good at it, you guys. The cheese is a real win. This wine also is, we've never bothered to name it, as you've noticed. We've sort of tried in the past, but It's one of our calling cards. And it's an idea that we blatantly stole from France. And so we like to just tell you what it is on the label.
The wine, Molly's got the great olfactory senses going and can pick out numerous aromas, but it also has a great texture. When it hits your tongue, it's rich and creamy, and it just kind of flows front to back and carries through all the way into the finish. And the tannins are quite soft, although there's a lot of them here. So this wine will age well, but it drinks well even now.
Yeah. And one thing to note with Grenache is just because the color of Grenache is light, so it does, as a grape, it has low anthocyanin content. But our biggest thing with Grenache is the tannin management. So Grenache has low color, but so much tannins. So a lot of times, like, Grenache could just rip the enamel off of your teeth, dry out your tongue. But when it's well made and it's balanced with a little bit of Mourvedre and Syrah, you really don't get that impression. So you might try Grenaches and be like, wow, they're so light and easy to drink, when in reality, a lot of them actually have some of the stronger tannins that we see.
And when they're blending, so because we're small, Molly, Bob, and the team taste literally every barrel of everything. It's not a composite blend. It's not like our cellar master goes through and pulls a little from 10 barrels and then they taste all 10 barrels. And it is intense. The Grenache days are intense because of those tannins. And, in those early stages, these guys are tasting these 6 months after harvest, a year after harvest, a year and a half after harvest. And so the tannins are a real thing. Bob's solution is string cheese, which actually works pretty well. A little bit of fat to sort of cut it. It can wake your face back up.
Yeah, we're in the middle of tasting every single barrel right now from both the 2022 and the 2021 vintage. And just to give you guys an idea, we're on week 3 of 3 days a week, 20 to 24 wines a day.
Yeah.
So it's been brutal. My teeth are not happy with it.
Yeah, it's the best. They always taste in the morning. So Molly and Bob and Jesse come downstairs and they look like they've really been going wild because they just have like purple face. And it's very funny.
It's a job where you carry your toothbrush to work with you.
Yeah. No, my favorite is imagining you then going to pick up your children at daycare.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
Yeah, that happened today actually, and I had to pick up my 1-year-old, and then I had a doctor's appointment, and I had just come down from tasting about 18 wines, and I just looked and I was like, oh my God, I had to grab my toothbrush like on the drive. I'm like, they're gonna call CPS.
It's pretty common in this town, thankfully,
Yeah.
but like the dentists all know. They don't ask if it's coffee, they ask if it's wine.
Yeah.
Which I have mixed feelings about, to be honest.
So I'm thinking we need to move on. What do you guys think? We're on to
Let's do it.
how are we doing on time wise here?
We're doing great.
Are we okay?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Pacing, perfect.
So next up is the first of the 2020 Syrahs. These Syrahs are really cool. I am keen to get them out there. Oh, here we go. The old
Keen is a
900
good
Syrah.
word.
So there's my dad. You guys can guess which one he is.
He's the tall one in the back.
He's the tall one on the right. He kind of looks like Christopher Reeve in the initial Superman.
Oh,
is
I
the
can
way
see
think of
that
it.
actually.
Yeah, super
How
handsome guy.
tall? He was what, like, how tall was Grandpa?
6'4".
Ooh.
Oh, I thought he was taller than that.
No,
pretty tall.
6'4". He would be today 103. So cheers to dad.
Today was his birthday?
Well, no, it was in February
Oh,
actually,
okay.
but yeah.
Must
Oh,
have
I
been.
was just saying, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have, over the years, we've tried to incorporate little family things into our naming scheme. So some of you have been around for a while, you know about Claudia Cuvée, which is our Marsanne, another delicious white wine named for my mother. And we have Anne's Block, which is our Petite Syrah. We'll come to that in a moment. Named for Lynn's mom. And for years now, we have been trying to come up with a wine to name for Lynn's dad, and we finally did it.
We finally did.
So a sneak peek. You'll hear about it later in the year, but we have a very special Vineyard Select Syrah that is awesome.
Yeah.
It'll pop.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We'll hear about it later. Anyhow,
It's
let's
only
go back.
50 cases, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
so stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the old 900.
So you didn't finish the explanation. We only looked at the photo, but what?
Oh, why is it? Oh, sorry. The airplane's named the old 900. I thought everybody knew that. I guess I forgot that part. Yeah. It's kind of funny that when my dad never really spoke about the war, I think a lot of the World War II guys were like that until, I don't know, he was probably in his 80s. And I was visiting him, and we were sitting in the backyard. He was living in Albuquerque, and he said, "Hey, Bobby, I want to show you something." And he pulls out this very slim, like an ambassador's briefcase, a leather briefcase, but a slim one. And he pops this thing open. And the first thing I see is a Colt 45 sitting on top of a stack of papers.
Totally casual.
And it turned out right below that was his discharge papers. And if you read the discharge papers, they charged him $25 because he did not return his service sidearm when he was discharged.
$25, that's a steal.
Yeah, well, today, yeah. Still the original holster, the original 45.
That's funny.
Yeah, and probably the original bullets. I mean, there's a clip of bullets. I'd be hesitant to pull the trigger on the thing, but anyhow, I still have it.
For the
Great
best.
paperweight. But anyhow, you can go in there and you can see all the orders being, you're transiting to Tinian Island in the Marianas, and his airplane was indeed number 900. So.
And what was his role on the airplane?
He was a flight engineer, which on a B-29 meant he did everything except steer the damn thing. Essentially, the pilots had a throttle, and they had the 2 foot pedals and the steering wheel deal, whatever you call it. And that was it. There was no gauges or anything in front of a pilot, but behind them was stationed the flight engineer, who had a bank literally 5 feet high by 5 feet wide, covered with literally 100 gauges and switches and knobs and stuff. So that was his job, was to fly it. And then when it was on the ground, he had to fix it so they could get it off the ground again the next time around. So that was one of his deals. He was a fix-it guy. Ugly fixes sometimes, but man, they always worked.
We could use them in the winery.
We could.
You really could.
I've wished for him many a time.
Really
That was one gene that didn't come across. So, yeah.
We'll let it slide, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So onto the wine. What do we got here?
But I forgot. I might think of it.
Okay.
Onto the wine.
Onto the wine. Well, I'm sure most of you are probably familiar, so I hope I'm not over explaining, but in case we have some new folks here, Alta Colina, we really are a Syrah house. We make some beautiful Syrahs. We have 2 main Syrahs, occasionally a third, and now a sneak preview into a 4th. But our 2 main Syrahs are Old 900 and Toasted Slope. So Toasted Slope is block 1 and block 2. It's all south facing, 2 different clones. Toasted, we're in the Northern Hemisphere. It's south facing. It's in the sun a lot. But the Old 900 block is actually a north facing block, which, now with the climate change, it seems like a great idea. Why don't we plant more reds on north facing slopes, because it is a little cooler? But 20 plus years ago, that wasn't very common. Everybody sought out south facing slopes to plant reds on. And so, I love that we have this. This is a different clone. So it's called the Alban clone. So different from the clones that go into our Toasted Slope, and 100% north facing, and very, very steep. So it might not seem that big of a difference when we talk about south facing, north facing, but it really is. This block actually is shaded for a large portion of the morning, which really creates wildly different characteristics in this wine. And I feel like anytime I just blindly taste a Toasted Slope versus Old 900, I get, I hope it's not just because of the name, but to me, this wine always has a more masculinity to it. So Toasted Slope is like a voluptuous woman, where Old 900 has this rusticity to it, and it always has like a more austere flavor profile. So in this, I do get some of that blackberry cobbler, but I get the graphite, the wet slate, like river rocks. And it's a really cool characteristic, because in hot Paso, a lot of Syrahs can turn jammy or just be kind of too luscious and then fall off on the back end. But one thing about Alta Colina, we are a high elevation vineyard site. So we have thin soils. And that's amazing because it creates small grapes, and we have a lot of intensity in our fruits. So we have a lot of color, but we also have a lot of tannins. So where a lot of Syrah is a varietal that commonly just doesn't have a lot of tannins. So you can get good color, but your tannins just stop here. Where for us, our tannins will go up to here. So our job is to kind of tame those tannins to create a balanced wine. And so I think you can really tell the intensity of this wine. Like you put it in your mouth and it's just got this explosive entrance with this really strong mid palate weight and then this really long structured finish. But knowing that our fruit is kind of strong and intense at the ranch, we try to do the work in advance so that when you guys get the bottles, they're approachable and ready to drink. So these wines were barrel aged for 20 months and then bottle aged for another 9 months before releasing to you. So I think all of our Syrahs, you can pop the cork on them right now and they're tasting great. Another thing that's really amazing about these wines, which part of it comes from our tannin, is that you could drink this wine over a week. Like you can open this wine, put a cork in it, have another glass, put a cork in it, which is something that I really appreciate because a lot of times you open a bottle, you don't finish it, you try to go back to it a day or two later and it's just gone. And so I think that's something you'll find with our wines is that they really hold on.
Not to mention, it's black as sin, this wine.
Yeah,
It's
the
awesome.
color is incredible.
And it's got viscosity. I mean, you can kind of swirl it in your glass and
Turns your glass.
it's almost
purple.
like got a little gelatin in it or something. It's awesome wine.
Was this co-fermented with Viognier at all? Do you remember?
This one, I believe
Mhm.
we did. Yeah, we did.
We're just
co-ferment
gonna
this one.
cheat. We're gonna take a
Can't
look.
remember, but
We
it was
did.
2%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Block 8, we did some experimenting with this wine as well. And so the nice thing at Alta Colina, we actually don't have a lot of tanks, which might seem kind of contrary as a winery. Is like, well, where are you doing all your fermentations? Well, we ferment in these 1.5 ton big plastic bins.
It's like a box with no lid.
Yeah,
Very high tech.
which it's a lot more work for us because you harvest 3 tons and it has to be split 2 times or 4.5 tons goes into 3 bins, which is pump overs on every single bin multiple times a day. But it allows us to have individual experiment vessels. So each one I can do something different on. And I remember on Block 8, we did a few different trials and we did some co-ferment, some non-co-ferment. But we really like that.
So
See,
I-
this is
I
why they
need-
work well together.
I need to jump in here. This is kind of amusing. At least it is to me. I get a kick out of it.
Uh-oh.
So Molly came to us from a famous, very, very nice, ultra modern, beautiful winery.
It's incredible.
with a
It's like a
tank farm.
Ferrari
Yeah,
winery.
tank farm you would not believe. But,
Just a $25 million winery.
well, whatever. I mean, there's probably, I guess, 50 of these beautiful tanks. You can heat them, you can cool them, you can pump them into whatever. She comes to our place. She gets these plastic boxes.
They're like, here's a
to
bunch
work
of
with.
boxes.
And in 2021, we had kind of a bumper crop and it all came at once. So we weren't able to turn the boxes. A lot of times you can use the box twice, but in 21, we only got to use it once because it all came. So we had a friend who had some wooden boxes that we went out and borrowed that had a plastic liner, kind of like an overgrown saran wrap sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if she never said a word about it. She just kept
I
on going.
don't know about that.
I might have said a
I
few.
might have said a few words about that. You're being very nice. But those are
Awesome.
actually the 2021. It's
It's
just
a
a
true
beautiful
test.
vintage.
True
So,
test.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was the boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are no longer at our establishment, if you were wondering.
It's
We
true.
returned them. Any rate,
is true.
awesome wine. And just think about the Toasted Slope. It's yet to come. We will release it in the fall. So it's going to have
Yeah.
another 6 months of bottle age on it when you guys get it.
Yeah. So as we head into the final wine of the evening, which is the 2020 Anne's Block Petite Sirah, can you take your time on the old 900?
Oh, cheese wise, wait a second.
Oh, cheese. Thank you.
The cheese pairing on this
Dude.
thing is awesome.
It is really
And
good.
it's got some
A date.
a date.
These are, you can't tell, like, these are the notes Emily provided. Like, she knows about it. Okay. So, let's do one wine.
Oh,
Toscano cheese with black pepper with a glazed date.
Yes. It's really amazing. It's a superb pairing.
mhm.
It really, really is. Yeah.
All right.
Let's get into a little Petite Sirah.
We're talking Petite Sirah. Speaking of family names, Anne's Block, Lynn's mom. We got another picture, Ivy. Let's get that picture up. Ivy did some work and dug out, this was a 2005 picture.
I wasn't even here that day, which
Yeah.
makes me sad.
So you see the lady with the white hat on, that is Ann Walsh is her name. You can't tell from the coat that she's wearing, but underneath that, she has kind of a, like a gardener's apron type of thing, you know, tied around her waist, and it's got a trowel and trimmers and whatever else, labels of things. And she's getting ready to plant the first vine on Alta Colina.
Oh,
Mhm.
And that's my son, Zach, with the red beanie,
that's so
Yeah.
special.
digging a hole for her. And that's Maggie's older sister, Katie, who's prepping the hole next door. And that's me standing in back with my hands in my pockets.
Bob,
Not doing a hell of a lot.
I paid for it. You do the work.
That's funny. I had not noticed that.
Anyhow, so Ann's block was named in honor of Ann kind of being the star of the show. We planted, I don't know, 1/5 of that block probably. There was probably 30, 40 people there. Each got to plant 1 or 2 or 3, however many they wanted. But Ann was the star, and so it became Ann's block ever after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was in 2005. Again, 20th anniversary this year. So we purchased the land. There was nothing there. You guys saw those photos earlier. So that was the very first of the 41,000 vines, which is pretty cool. And Bob somewhere still has it noted of who
Yeah,
planted which
I have a map.
vines.
I can find that vine for you again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that we should do that and walk out there and be
We
like,
should.
this one.
yeah,
We
exactly.
should.
Katie,
Who's to blame?
back.
Exactly.
We can't blame you because you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
This works
I
really well
know.
for you.
Where were you, Maggie?
Yeah. I was in Italy.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly suffering.
I actually remember exactly where I was. Like I remember the restaurant. I was sad, but also I
Fine
was
dining
Italy.
in Florence, I believe. So,
It wasn't
yeah.
fine. I was in college. It was not that fine. Don't worry. Don't worry. So this is a wine that we feel like we sort of discovered. And by that, I mean, you know, something like GSM, we knew we were going to make, right? Like we planted that on purpose to make that wine. And of the 31 acres that we farm, how big is Ann's block? Not an acre.
It's 4/10 roughly.
Okay, so a half acre.
Mhm.
And originally that was it. So we planted this half acre of Petite Syrah, and the motivation was it'll be our little ace up the sleeve blending grape that we'll never tell anyone about, because Petite reliably gives its often petites are like big and dumb, like big color, big fruit, it's a great like sangria wine. And then occasionally you'll find these incredible high-end, really beautiful, complex, balanced versions of a petite. And we honestly kind of dumb lucked into one of those.
We did. Mhm.
And since then, it's become a favorite. And this in 2020, we only bottled, I think it was 116 cases. So this is one that is going to be gone at release.
Mhm.
So if you love this wine, be sure that you include as much as you want this week, because it'll be gone. It'll never hit the tasting room. There won't be any more. But talk to me about Petite.
Mm.
Oh, she's eating.
Mhm.
Sorry.
The pairing is really good with this one too.
Mm.
What is the stuff that goes
A
on?
cherry chutney.
Cherry chutney on blue cheese.
Delicious. Ugh.
It has a really wild pairing. And it actually really works.
Mhm.
She's good at it.
I know.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Petite Sirah. Yeah, it's a very funny grape. Our Petite Sirah, kind of a interesting note, is all head trained, which is not the most common way that you see Petite Sirah actually. And then being out in the vineyard, it's just such an interesting grape. It does this thing that I like. Daniel's our vineyard manager. He and I call them mermaid tails. And so where you have like a normal grape cluster, you know, kind of grapes that come down like this, and it just like you would buy in the store, it comes down, eventually tapers down to 1 or 2 grapes. And it's kind of, there's a main stem in the middle of there. Well, on Petite Sirah, that stem will sometimes double. And then at the end, it splits. And so the grape, the cluster comes down, it kind of flattens, and then you have like 2 bottoms to it. It's really interesting. So it's kind of fickle. It also is a grape where it's the only grape I've seen where even when the fruit is green. So after fruit set, you know, we just have these little tiny green clusters, and then the berry goes through cell division and cell expansion. And during that time, we have no color, no sugar. And even then, when these clusters are exposed to direct sunlight, it can raisin, which is just, I've never seen any other varietal do this. So you can see a green cluster and there's already sections of it that have raisined from sun exposure. So it's a really interesting varietal to work with.
Is interesting a euphemism?
Well, you know, I feel
Sounds brutal.
we're kind of like, as winemakers, vineyard managers, we're kind of masochists in a way, right? Like we never have an easy job. We don't do this to a recipe, you know, we never figure it out. Every year throws us something different. There's a new headache, a new pain. And so, you know, it's like, sure, we'd love to see the grapes just grow perfect. Everything's fine. And we know all the answers, but it's fun when we get these mysteries in a way. And this block is down low towards our tree line. So it also has some bird pressure. So it's really cool. These vines are head trained to allow the tractor to drive through. We tie them up to the stake. But that also then creates a little umbrella for them. So it actually protects the fruit. And then we hang like bird netting and shade cloth over the tops of them. So yeah, as Maggie said, it's kind of funny because a lot of people just use Petite Sirah to like in Napa, they love to just like blend it into cab and add some color to a grape that has a lot of tannins. But here, this wine is more interesting. It's more complex, where a lot of times Petite Sirah can just be really blocky and monolithic. This wine has a lot of like savory and spicy notes to it, and you get some red currant. I think it shows a lot of complexity, but also has some elegance, which are two words that are not commonly associated with Petite Sirah.
Yeah, like the other high-end petites that I always think of are Turley, and I think Ridge, maybe.
Yeah, Ridge has one.
Yeah, so you can find them. You can find these really beautiful high-end expressions, and then you can also find a lot that are monolithic. I think that's a nice way of putting it.
Fun fact about that. I was at a Petite Sirah tasting locally a couple years ago with, I think he totally overdid it. He had 39 Petite Sirahs, which was like, you cannot do this to us, because that was really difficult. But the vineyard manager of Turley guessed our Petite Sirah thinking it was theirs.
I'm not mad at that story.
Yeah. And I was like, I love that. Thank you, Brennan.
Was this at Aaron?
It was at Aaron Wines, yeah. And Brennan Stover, who's their vineyard manager, thought ours was their juicy Petite Sirah.
I love that story.
I attended that same tasting 2 or 3 years earlier, and Ann's block placed in the top 3, depending on the people that were voting. Everybody was in the top 3. Yeah. It's special. There's something lucky about that little spot.
Yeah, we looked into it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we are coming up at 6:30, and for folks who are getting on with their evening, we are just really delighted that you could join us. Any and all feedback, we always love to hear from you. And if any of you are interested in, again, I know we've got some folks who are newer to membership. Ivy is going to jump on and do a quick little screen shared demo of how to customize. Just, there's lots of buttons to push in that software. The big tip that helps is you have to add before you subtract. Otherwise, the software will yell at you and it's inhospitable.
Very annoying. Yeah.
Yes. But before we get into that, we just are thrilled. We're really incredibly excited to debut Molly's Wines. This is such a strong release, and we're thrilled all of you joined us. Yeah. We'd also love to hear your thoughts on the Master the World collaboration. On our end, we're really excited about it, but we'd love any feedback from you there. And let's have a little cheers.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Truly.
Absolutely.
And these wines are good, man. Salud. So we'll have Ivy jump back on. And then anyone who wants to loiter, once we're through the demo, we'll hang out for a few minutes too. So if anyone wants to come off mute and say hi, we'd love to chat, but we'll We'll put ourselves on mute also while Ivy does her thing. So cheers, everybody.
I'll make this short, I promise. I have been getting so many great questions in the chat. Thank you guys for participating there. Okay, hopefully I've gotten to I'm a pro now at the end of our Zoom on how to share my screen. So hopefully you can see it in front of me here. This is the screen when you log on to your membership. This is what you'll see. And you'll navigate right over here to this club memberships tab. And under your membership, you should see an active shipment. And this is really exciting. It's pretty new functionality that we're using here. So hopefully those of you who joined us for a few past shipments have seen it. If you're new and you need a private demo or have any questions, just let me know. But this is what you'll see when you log in. You can notice your shipment right over here. So I, as a test, am in the 6-bottle red and white club. So you'll notice I have 2 white wines, an Anne's Block, 2 Old 900, and a GSM. And if you want to adjust, you just click this little button here, and it'll pull this screen up. What Maggie was referencing is our software doesn't like you to fall under your minimum amount of bottles. So because I'm a 6-bottle member, I needed at least 6 bottles in my shipment. So I think because the Anne's Block is in short supply, I'm going to do 3 of these. Gotta have some of that GSM. We have a 2-bottle limit on that. What I'm going to do, if you want 2012 GSM, is add it to your order. You have the next 24 hours before any other members have access to these wines. So especially for the things that are in short supply, 2012 GSM, 2020 Anne's Block Petite Syrah, and the 2 white wines, Grenache Blanc and Viognier, I suggest you add them as soon as possible. When I see that you've customized your order, I'll go ahead and charge it, and that will secure those wines for you. So if you want the 2012 GSM or the Anne's Block Petite Sirah, go ahead and, or the white wines, go ahead and do it sooner rather than later. Anyway, so I've added these to my order. And now let's say I want to come down here and just get 1 bottle of Old 900. Now you have this in your package, it's updated. And you can return to the club membership here. The other common question I get is how many bottles you need to add in order for your order to ship complimentary. We ship complimentary on orders of 12 bottles or more. So if you want to round up to a case, that's an option. Otherwise, you'll get charged, our 4 and 6 bottle members get charged $25 flat rate. Our Anne's Club members get their wine shipped complimentary. So that's an easy little demo. Things like changing your address are super easy. If you are normally a pickup member but like to ship, you can do that here. You can see I like to send wine to all my friends. If you are normally a shipping member but you're going to be in the area, you can also change that here. Just go to edit and pick up. So yeah, if you have any other questions, Eric and I are available. Most of you know very well where to find me. Send me a note, ivy@altacolina.com. Text me if you have my number. I'm happy to help you there too. Call the winery. Like I said, I have COVID, so I will not be there in person. You might get to talk to Maggie or Erica. But let us know. We're happy to help. This week is all about you guys. So take advantage, ask whatever questions you want. Yeah, let us know. We're here to help you and to share these wines with you. So yeah, let us know how we can help.
Thanks, Ivy.
Good work, Ivy.
And truly, any questions, you all know where to find us and where to find Ivy and Erica. And Erica let us know there was a great question about this year's rainfall and how it will affect the growing season and beyond. So I'm going to pass that to Molly.
I think Bob's biting at the bit.
That to Bob.
I mean, I'm happy to talk, but Bob is
go
really excited by the rain.
Well, so we're at 29 inches right now. Just to put that in perspective for you, we're at 14 last year for the entire season, and the year before 9. So we've more than doubled last year, and we still have rain ahead. In fact, we're looking at 1 or 2 inches this coming weekend.
Which is more, I think,
Yeah.
multiple atmospheric rivers headed our way.
And so it's absolutely lovely. And I think the organic farming and the native cover crop and the no-till just plays to our strengths. The soils are solid; they're not going anywhere. And the water just soaks right down. And I'm happy to report our well level has risen by 101 feet as of about 2
Whoa.
hours ago. So
That's
you know,
dramatic.
you get through our soil and you hit that cracked up calcareous rock that was left over under the Pacific Ocean 20 million years ago. And it just flows down, and our well happens to be at a point where it pools. So we're lucky.
Yeah, we work with a company called Well Intel, and this is another example of just like the nerd vibes. We're small, and it is like most people don't do things like measure their well, but it brings
Standing water
Bob,
level.
brings Bob great joy.
It does. It's on my phone. I check it when I wake up first thing after I turn off the alarm each morning.
What do you do first? Check Well Intel or do Wordle?
I do Well Intel, and if it's growing season, I check Fruition. I see what the water usage is on the vines.
That's another, we work with another company because nerd stuff, where it helps us gauge, as a non-technical growing person, it tells us how thirsty the vine is. They can tell you whether it's technical and who
Yeah,
knows.
and
but
then
yeah.
Wordle after that.
And then Wordle.
Yeah. So I think this rain is good in many ways too, Molly. Talk
Yeah.
about all the good things. Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, I think it's going to be amazing for hopefully beyond just this year as well. Like for years, we used to talk about what the average rainfall was. And then we kept saying that same number and hadn't even gotten close to that for 5+ years. I live deeper out in the Adelaide and used to work further out that way. So we're currently, I believe, at like 35 inches out there.
Awesome.
And just to note, like what we used to say was average was like 25 in that area of the Adelaide. Paso Robles is usually 12 to 14. And then the airport would be like 8 to 10. So it's like a crazy drop in rainfall. 2017 deep in the Adelaide, we saw 43 inches and we
nuts.
could be there again this year. And in 2017, we saw bumper crop. I think we were all expecting to see a little more fruit, and then we just saw way more fruit. But surprisingly, the quality was amazing. So a lot of times, you know, people think when you have so much more fruit, are you going to have way less phenolic content and intensity in your fruit? But the fact of the matter is, with all the winter rain, we're going to have a lot more leaf area, and all of those leaves can ripen more fruit. So we can still see amazing quality in the fruit. So, you know, every year we're just hoping to get through. Last year looked absolutely perfect. And then we had the craziest heat wave we've ever had. And we were all just praying not for smoke, you know, and this year, I don't know. I
see.
hope this means we're going to have just a beautiful year like 2021, but you know, maybe they give us every other year without a catastrophe.
We'll take it.
I don't know.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
It's on the growing side, or whatever, the combo growing and winemaking, virtually every vintage, there's one thing.
Yeah.
And when the winemakers all like run into each other in town, they'll be like, oh, did you pick before or after the heat spike?
And
Or
Maggie's
"Oh."
like, I literally cannot sit through one more of these conversations.
No, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's like local scandal, but it's the weather.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I got one more thing to add, actually.
Okay.
I have an image for you. So you've seen vineyards, I'm sure you have, but your typical non-organic vineyard this time of the year has between the vine rows is a beautiful green cover crop. And then under the vines, there's about a 2 or 3 feet wide strip of dirt. Not a single green thing growing there. That's because it's been burned by chemicals. So they've gone down through a sprayer and killed it all. If you go to our vineyard today, what you'll find is in the middle, we have a it's only about an inch tall. It's so cold, I think. I'm not sure. I'm a little worried about it, but the cover crop is there. It's solid, run down the middle. And you go under the vine row, and we literally have 6-inch high cover crop growing right there. And the reason for it is that in December, we put 100 tons of compost down in our vineyard, and we used a spreader, which put it under the vines. So we drove down the row and it put it under this side, and we drove down the next row and it put it on that side. So we have about a 3 foot wide stretch of the grass is like, I don't know, 5 times higher and richer. It's the absolute opposite. It's just lovely. I love it.
It's a beautiful sight.
Yeah.
So again, thank you all so much. I'm just really happy that you all got to be here with us, and we're excited for you to get shipments. Everything will ship later in the month. And in the meantime, you know, do let us know how it's going. And if you have any questions, cheers.
Yeah.
And
Cheers.
if anyone wants to come off mute and say hi, we'll hang out for another few minutes.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Or we can just keep talking at you. That's fine too.